Alright, back for another beer review, and today I will be doing yet another comparison review, this time of two beers from the new Trail Brewing Company, and they are out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and we have their Zombies Are People 2 and their Double Zombies. So they're calling Zombies Are People 2 a pumpkin ale that is brewed with maple syrup, vanilla, and pumpkin spices. It comes in at 5.7% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed. Meanwhile, the Double Zombies is a double pumpkin ale that is brewed with double maple syrup, double vanilla, and double pumpkin spices. It comes in at 8.5% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed. Time of review. Both of these beers are just under 3 months old. I'm going to give a huge thanks, shout out once again to a very good friend of mine and a viewer of the channel, Justin, for hooking me up with these. So big thanks to him. In the description box, I will post a link to the beer haul video I did that contains all the goodies he gave me in person. He actually gave me a whole case, 24 beers from Pennsylvania, and 11 of them came from the New Trail Brewing Company. I've reviewed all the hop-forward beers from New Trail to this point, so now we're getting into some of the other styles they do, and I thought it'd be fun to do a side-by-side of these two because this is basically the base, and this is the double version, and I can tell you, as someone who has drank an incredible amount of pumpkin beers on the channel, but just in my life in general, bigger is not always better when it comes to the pumpkin beer style. I mean, I've had like just big pumpkin beers with all kinds of crazy, adjuncts and additives and whatnot, and it didn't necessarily make a good pumpkin beer. Sometimes, simpler is better. So we will see if that is the case. So, there is no countdown date on either of these, but I did check their Instagram, and these were released in late August, so I'm just going to say just under 3 months old right now. Anyway, we're going to do the old school Matt from Massive Beer Reviews a pour here. We're going to do the double pour. I can't pour. You guys watch my channel. You know that. I spill shit basically every other review, so why not do it again? But this time, at least it'll look cool. Maybe. Anyway, we'll see if we can do the double pour. The head's probably going to be stupid. It's probably going to be terrible, but here we go. Oh, yeah. All right, do something like that. Not terrible. Hey, look at that. Not terrible. I mean, the head and shit's crazy. But as far as like the pour, I'm pretty fucking happy. So let's get these into the air, as I do, and we'll see. How do they look? Very similar. This actually, let me hold it up to the light. Yeah, okay, when I hold it into the light, this is a bit darker. So the double is a bit darker, which you kind of expect. But if I just hold them like this, very similar in appearance. They have this like burnt orange-red color. Fine particulates throughout the entire beer for both of them. This has way more fine particulates, but this is hazier in general. I poured it, as you do with the side-by-side pours, I poured it, very aggressively. So these have about a 3 finger of a straight-up tan, almost khaki-colored head. I will say the regular one looks better, but as you swirl, like that head does not want to go anywhere. That looks super creamy. But yeah, they both look creamy. This, though, the base looks a little bit more creamier than the double version. So put the double version over here and we'll get into the base. Let's get a nose. Okay, that smells nice. Wow. So it's everything you kind of want in a pumpkin ale, or at least I do, right? You get, the malt base, there's caramel, there's toffee, there's brown sugar, and there's a added sweetness from the maple syrup. And I would say it's more generic maple sweetness in the nose. It's just bumping up that malt goodness. But then we're getting nutmeg, cinnamon. I don't know exactly what pumpkin spices they're using here. They just say generically pumpkin spices. But yeah, I would say nutmeg, cinnamon, maybe a touch of... Is that a clove? Maybe clove. The vanilla is there too. I think it's really cool because the maple is bumping up the sweetness and the vanilla comes in. So you're almost getting, to me, I'm not getting quite the crust like a regular crust or a graham cracker crust. I'm getting more of the pumpkin pie filling with a cool whip or whipped cream kind of topping. It doesn't smell overly spicy or overly sweet. It has a nice balance between all that. I really like that brown sugar, caramel, toffee, malt character. Yeah, it smells pretty fucking good. So let's smell the double version. Whoa. Holy, okay. So this is what I was talking about. I didn't think it was actually going to hit me in the nose. When I said that bigger versions, when they dump more ingredients in this case, in this style specifically, you're double pumpkin spices. Double maple syrup, sure. Double vanilla, okay. Double pumpkin spices, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing because the only thing I got on that first blast was an incredibly huge punch of pumpkin spices. Yeah, like just big cinnamon. This has almost an allspice. I don't know what pumpkin spices. We're going to assume they probably use cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, ginger, and clove. A couple of those, maybe all of them. But I'm getting huge cinnamon, allspice, and clove. So not nutmeg like I was getting here. It's kind of replaced by allspice, and I think it's giving me like more concentrated spice aroma. Underneath everything, there's brown sugar, there's caramel, there's toffee, there's the vanilla, the maple syrup sweetness. This one, though, as I start to get acclimated to the spice, this is giving me straight on pumpkin pie filling, period. The vanilla might be a little bit dialed back. The maple is, again, bringing that sweetness, but this smells a little bit like I'm going in for a bite of pumpkin pie. Like, bring it to my face, and I'm about to eat it, and the first thing I get is that like creamy pumpkin pie filling. That's what the nose is indicating here. I still think I like that a little bit better because it's encompassing the vanilla. It's not as powerful with the spices, but this is a cool nose. The aromatics in this one, different, but I'm kind of afraid of taking a sip of this because I feel like that the spices are just going to be overblown in that one on the palate. We'll see. Anyway, let's get into the base. So cheers, everybody. Thanks again to Justin. That's fucking really good. Wow. It's very flavorful, but somewhat reserved and subtle and nuanced, which is kind of crazy. Wow. I feel like if you're not a pumpkin person, especially when it comes to, let's be honest, pumpkin spices don't technically exist. The spices used in pumpkin beers are basically just spices that most people have in the cupboard. Yes, they're used in pumpkin pies, but they're also used when it comes to beer in like winter warmers and stuff. So pumpkin spices aren't technically a thing, but if you say pumpkin spices, people know what it is. That's what they put it on labels. But anyway, let's go with this. Is if you're somebody that doesn't really care for pumpkin pie or anything that's pumpkin related, like coffee, drinks, whatever, candles, I think you might be able to get behind this. Body's medium, touch over medium for 5.7. That's impressive. The mouthfeel, what I like about this, has a nice crisp kind of feeling right at the front of the palate when you take a sip, but as it goes through, it really smooths out. It softens on the palate and becomes somewhat creamy, and I dig that. The taste, though, to me, as I'm tasting this, it's almost, and I've mentioned this in a couple other pumpkin reviews during my 10 Days of Pumpkin in late October, some of the beers gave me more of a pumpkin roll vibe. That's what I'm getting with this. I get a nice bready, sweeter kind of, if you had a pumpkin roll, it's like the wrapped in the dough with like the cream cheese filling, dusting of powdered sugar on top. That's kind of more in the realm what I'm getting here as opposed to pumpkin pie. And again, brown sugar, there's caramel, there's big malty goodness, maybe a touch of molasses right at the forefront. What's funny is that I don't think that either of these technically say they're brewed with pumpkin. So I don't know if there's pumpkin puree in there. That's the first thing I'll say. Anyway, to go back to what I was saying about this. I shouldn't say first thing. That was something I should have said earlier. So yeah, all that malty goodness passes through, vanilla hits, and then the spices hit. But the spices are way more subtle than in this beer, at least from the aromatic standpoint. Cinnamon, nutmeg, maybe a touch of clove, but it's very reserved, like I said. But it brings everything together. The maple syrup, I think, is just, again, bumping up maybe the sweetness, because this isn't overly sweet, but for something 5.7% is giving me a firm sweetness, which is nice. It finishes semi-dry, and every time I have a pumpkin beer that finishes like semi to full-on dry, the first thing that comes to mind is like the cinnamon dryness you get. If you ever did like the cinnamon challenge or just had like straight-on cinnamon, it has that super drying effect. And that's kind of what I feel it happens in pumpkin beers for me. It kind of reminisce about that. Yeah, this is mild bitterness. Again, it's semi to full on dry, mild bitterness. Very easy to drink, lean 60-40 in terms of the sweetness, but a really good beer. So I'm going to hold off on a rating, but I'm really digging that. Probably one of the better pumpkin beers I've had this year. Let's see if this still makes a noise like it used to. So we've cleansed the palate. Let's get into the double zombies. Cheers, and thanks again, Justin. These are both really good. Jesus. See, this is pumpkin roll. This is pumpkin pie, and it's very again. This is a beer I think is approachable for some people that might not like the overbearing spice characters in pumpkin ales. This, I think you have to enjoy that because this is quite spice forward, but it works. So body mouthfeel. This is like higher side of medium, lower side of full, definitely bigger than this. Appropriate for 8.5%. The mouthfeel, very akin to this. Again, spritzy at the front of the palate, back of the palate, smooth, somewhat soft, and has a creamy kind of lush sensation. So body mouthfeels are appropriate for what they're going for, in my opinion. The taste, though, it's like an amped up version of this with more spice and more of the pumpkin pie filling, where this, again, was the pumpkin roll. I'll probably mention that 53 more times throughout the rest of this review. Right at the forefront, again, brown sugar, caramel, toffee, a brown bread, just, again, sweeter malt goodness. Passes through. I think what happens is that the spices hit me. The one thing I think this is missing a little bit in comparison to this is the vanilla is not as prominent. The spices hit first, and I'm getting more of a cinnamon, an allspice. Is there a little bit of nutmeg maybe going on? Cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice. I think they're similar, cinnamon, nutmeg, I would say. This has more of like a clove thing going on. This has more of an allspice. And then the vanilla just darts in and out. The maple syrup isn't noticeable in either of these beers as far as like tasting actual maple syrup. I think it's just providing more of a sweetness and bumping up the rest of the sweet malt character. This one finishes a little less dry. This is, we'll say semi-dry, and this is more closer to full-on dry. No bitterness on either. I'm really just a very mild, minute bitterness. And this is definitely a little sweeter. So if this leans 60-40, this is like 70-30, 75-25. So this is how I'll wrap it up between the two for comparison purposes. This is more of a pumpkin roll, as I said. This is more approachable for, I think, the average beer drinker. And if you love pumpkin beers, I think you'll appreciate this one. But if you like the big spice character, I think you might be a little bit underwhelmed. Also, if you're looking for specifically maple syrup in this one, I don't think I really get it. So if you see all maple syrup on it and everything, and you see pumpkin spices and vanilla, really the spices are subtle. The maple syrup's just bumping up the sweetness, and the vanilla's here. So definitely here. That's where I'd wrap this one up. This is if you like pumpkin pie filling, you're okay with a more spice-forward pumpkin ale, and if you want a little bit more ABV. I'll tell you right now, I cannot tell the difference in terms of ABV outside of the body. This is noticeably bigger body, but no warming in the chest for either, nothing on the palate. This is almost 3% higher than the base, and it drinks incredibly well, extremely smooth, not noticeable. There's no burn, there's nothing. So which one do I like more? I'm going to go back. I'm going to take one. Hang on. Let me go back to the base because I want to rate these appropriately to how I feel. So going back, it's fallen a little bit flat from what it was before because I think that one just dominated in terms of flavor. All things considered, I like the double a little bit more. I think these both have their place. I think if you want a more sessionable, easier drinking, lower ABV pumpkin ale that's not going to weigh down your palate and you could session, I'd go with the Zombies Are People Too. And if you want the bigger, more boisterous, in your face, just overall like pumpkin ale character, I'd go with this. Now, both of these, I forgot to mention, are the 2022 releases. So if you see this one say next year in 2023, these are not the same release. And each year they kind of change a little bit. It is what it is. So rating. We'll go first on The Zombies Are People Too. I have no problems giving this beer right here. We'll go low 4.25. I'm going to go 4.15. Why? Because I think this flavor-wise is probably in like the high fours, like 4.405. I'm going to bump it up like a 0.1 into the low 4.25s because of the drinkability of this one and the fact that I appreciate this has a more subtle approach to what they're going for. Plus, I love the pumpkin roll vibe and the fact that I get the vanilla. And I think the body and mouthfeel are spot on. So a 4.15 for that beer. And for a double Zombies, the 2022 release, again, both of these 2022 release, I would give this I'll go high 4.25, I'll go 4.3 out of 5. I think as I continued to drink on this, it got better. I think I like the pumpkin pie filling. I like the more in-your-face kind of spice note that it's definitely big, but it's not overwhelming to somebody like me, a seasoned pumpkin ale drinker that has drank so much and can deal with big spice characters. I think it works for me. Didn't get the vanilla as much, but I love that it hides the alcohol, has a bigger body, just feels like you're drinking kind of a dessert without it being super sweet. It's not cloying or anything. So 4.3, 4.1, both really good beers. What do we do now? We do the cuvee. To drink a little bit more of this, and then we cuvee them, the cuvee. All right, we'll pour it into the double one, and we'll go back. Yeah, I spilled it down the side. I did that. Do you know why? Because I'm great. Just something as easy as mixing I can't do. That's why I'm surprised I didn't fuck up the pour. Okay, so the look of the cuvee. Very akin to what I was seeing earlier. Yeah, it's basically a mixture of both. Fine particulates, but a little bit more hazy like the base was. The head's not as crazy because, again, I didn't pour like an idiot. I can swirl back up, about a finger head. Very creamy looking. There's more alcohol legs on this, similar to what the double was. But yeah, that plays the role. Let's get a nose. Ooh. Let me cleanse the palate, but right from the get-go, something different. Has almost a ginger-esque kind of nose to it. Yeah, I really wasn't getting ginger in any of these, and all of a sudden I get ginger. I don't know. Ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg. Again, everything I said about both of them with that malt character being brown sugar, caramel, toffee, molasses, maple syrup, really not detectable. A little bit more vanilla in this than the double version. Yeah, it smells really good. Let's get into it. Cheers, everybody. Thanks again, Justin. Go one more sip. Yeah, I think that's a winner. What it does is it basically cuts everything in half. It brings it to an appropriate, like this is what, like if you were to do the comparison, this would be what, like around 7%, 7.2, something like that. Well, add them up, Joe. 5.7 plus 8.5 is 14.2, cut in half, 7.1. Oh my God, math. Yeah, I would love to see like a cuvee of this or some kind of middle ground. 7.1 probably would work perfectly for me. Basically, the easiest way to describe this one, it takes the best of both worlds. It has a nice subtlety to the spices, but it also has a more like sweet kind of feeling, and the mouthfeel is kind of right in between, or the same, but the body is right in between both of them. I think the brown sugar, it's kind of like you took this beer and you just maybe knock the spices down a little bit. It's kind of just like pumpkin pie filling, but I do get the actual whipped cream on there. And I'm almost was getting like a breadiness. So it's almost like a pumpkin roll meets pumpkin pie, like just a blend of them. It's pretty fucking cool. Rating on the cuvee, we'll go with one more sip, but I think I like it better than both. Yeah, I think I'll just give it a touch over the double. I'll give it a 4.35, so a high 4.25. There's not much more to say about this. Other than price and availability, I have no idea. This was given to me by Justin. So if Justin or anybody else wants to throw in the comment section what a price point on these are as far as a can goes or a 4-pack, let me know. I would hope that they're reasonably priced like most of New Trail stuff. I would say this is probably like the $3 round for a can, maybe like 12 to 14 for a 4-pack. And then this would probably be like $4 a can, $16 to $18 for a 4-pack. That's what I would assume based on prices here in New York, but that's not always how it works. And availability, I did have was it Ryan? I think it was Ryan. He said that he's starting to see New Trail in Maryland, and then I went to their website and they said now shipping to Maryland. So apparently they get into Maryland. I have no idea on their availability outside of we don't see them here, but this was a pretty fucking cool side by side. Now I thought that this was going to be the last pumpkin beer review of the season, but I do have one more pumpkin beer, courtesy of a good friend of mine and former beer tuber Joe over at NEPA Beer Reviews. He sent me a pumpkin Weizenbach, another one. And yeah, I can't wait to get into that one. Justin gave me the other pumpkin Weizenbach I've had, which was the Smash Lantern from 3 Beers Brewing. And it was a little bit off. It was a bit tart, but at the same time, I didn't care because it was quite tasty. Anyway, yeah, I have nothing else to say. So thanks to Justin for all the beers he sent my way, but certainly for these beers, because this was really fun to do. You don't do too many side-by-side pumpkin. I've done a couple over the, since the channel's inception. So it was really cool to do. And yeah, not much more to say other than I hope that you are drinking something just as delicious as I am. And yeah, appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review. Till the next one. Cheers.